Okay, in this video we're going to look at converting from polar coordinates to rectangular coordinates. In other words, going from r and theta to x and y. So if we plot a point in our coordinate system for x and y, it has an x coordinate to it and a y coordinate to it. However, it will also in turn have a radius, a distance from the point to the origin, and an angle of rotation. So this point here, while it has an x and y representation, also has a polar representation. So our cosine of theta is x over r, and our sine of theta is y over r. Again, going back to trig functions of any angle. So if we clear out each of the fractions for these equations, we get x is r times the cosine of theta, and y is r times the sine of theta. So our x-coordinate is the radius times the cosine of the angle. Our y-coordinate is the radius times the sine of the angle. So example 2, convert each of the following to rectangular coordinates. So these are going to be the 4 points we looked at before. So we have 2 and 240 degrees. So x is 2 times the cosine of 240 degrees. Y is 2 times the sine of 240 degrees. So evaluating each of those functions at their respective angle there, we have 2 times negative a half for x and 2 times negative radical 3 over 2 for y. So x is negative 1 and y is negative square root of 3, which as an ordered pair is negative 1, negative square root of 3. So if we look at that point in the polar grid, notice that while we do go out 2 rings and then rotate 240 degrees, if we were to swap this polar grid for an x and y grid, it would look like this. So keeping that exact same point where it is, we would go negative 1 for x and then negative square root of 3 for y. So here's negative 1 and negative 2 for y. Negative square root of 3 is about negative 1.73. All right, part B, negative 4 and 7 pi over 6. So x is negative 4 times the cosine of 7 pi over 6. Y is negative 4 times the sine of 7 pi over 6. So that'll give us negative 4 times negative square root of 3 over 2 for x, and negative 4 times negative a half for y. So our x-coordinate is 2 times the square root of 3, and y is 2. So our point is 2 radical 3 and 2. Part C, 2.5 and negative 5 pi over 2. X is 2.5 times the cosine of negative 5 pi over 2. Y is 2.5 times the sine of negative 5 pi over 2. It's going to give us x is 2.5 times 0, y is 2.5 times negative 1, so x is 0 and y is negative 2.5. So our rectangular equivalent of that point is 0, negative 2.5. Finally, part D, negative 3, negative pi over 4. X is negative 3 times the cosine of negative pi over 4. Y is negative 3 times the sine of negative pi over 4. So for x, it's negative 3 times the square root of 2 over 2. For y, it's negative 3 times negative square root of 2 over 2. And we get x is negative 3 square root of 2 over 2. And our y-coordinate is positive 3 square root of 2 over 2. All right, so that about does it for this video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.